Hello everyone, welcome to another video. And on today's video we are going to talk about how to do the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency form. Now this form is basically a new form that has been implemented by USCIS as of February of this year. So if you filed after February 24, then you are required as the beneficiary seeking to adjust your status to submit this form also. I'm going to try my best to get as detailed as I can be, and please, before going into this video, let me remind you I'm not a lawyer and I'm just giving my experience based on completing the form myself without having an RFE and also helping others to do so. But if in doubt about anything, please contact your attorney or get the proper legal advice. But as we know, there are a lot of persons out there that do not have the funds to get a lawyer and basically be doing these forms by themselves. So I'll be doing this on my tablet, so hopefully the resolution will be good enough for you guys. So the first thing you want to go on to the USCIS website. And from there, and as you can see, they have updated their website to a different layout, but the things still remain the same. You go to menu, and then you're going to click on forms, and then you're going to scroll to all forms. For a quick searching of this form, you can just go to search by content and type in I-944, and it will search, and then the form will come up. You click on form detail. Here they give you an explanation of what the form is about and how does it make you inadmissible. Basically with this form is not a case of, it's more a case of proving yourself more positive than negative. So it's basically a weighing factor. So will you become a public charge or will you not become a public charge? If your spouse takes public charge, take public assistance, and he's a US or she's a US spouse, it doesn't really affect your case. It's basically looking at you as a person seeking benefit. So positive factors are things like having an education, being young, being of good health, having health insurance, taking some classes, speaking good English. Those are good weighing factors. Never been on any housing assistance. And if you do even use it for pregnancy, do use public charge, some sort of public charge assistance if you're a pregnant person, as long as you get off that health insurance after, I think it's 30 days or 60 days, please research it. That will not be weighed as a negative factor for you. Some negative factors though, or if you're bad health, if you're older in age, you do not speak proper English, and if you or your spouse doesn't have any assets, and that's a tricky one, but when we get to that section we'll discuss that a little bit more. But anyways, you're going to scroll down and you'll see the form I-944 and the instruction. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and download the instructions and make sure that you read them properly before even going into the form. Or what I always advise people to do is download the form, have a copy of it while reading the instructions, so you go through each section, and then after you have completed the paper version, then you use that paper version to input your information on the electronic version or the soft copy before you print it. Now we're going to download the form I-944, and here it is within the browser. You don't want to fill the form out in a browser setting. You're going to just make sure you save it to your computer or your device that you're using, and you want to use an Adobe Reader to open this file. And here you have the form I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. Now, the first thing you want to do is to check right here to ensure that it has the correct expiration date. This is important. Next thing you want to do is check at the bottom right here to ensure that it is the right edition date before even starting the form, because this is a very lengthy form and you do not want to go ahead filling out this form and then realizing that it's an expired version, although it's just implemented, but this can be related to any other form. You don't want to go ahead fill it out and then you realize it's an expired form or it's not the right edition, because sometimes it will not have the current expiration date, but then they updated something on the form, so the edition date changes. So that's something you want to ensure that you look out for. Next thing, you want to ensure that it's the right amount of pages that matches the version or the edition over here. Because as I said, sometimes they implemented stuff, so one version may have 17 pages and then the current new version will have 18 pages. So that's just something to look out for, quick and easy. So let's get into the form and go through it as quickly as we can. Some information is not much to dwell on because they're very self-explanatory in a sense. So first box, as it says, to be completed if you're using an attorney or accredited representative. So if you're filling out this form on your own, there's no need to do that. Part 1, information about yourself. And this is basically self-explanatory. You're going to use your last name, your given or first name, and your middle name. One thing I must note though, if you're a female and you're married, you can use both your maiden name and your married name if you want to hyphenate it, or if you just want to go ahead and use your married name, that's fine. US mailing address, in care of, basically. So if you're living in an apartment that is not really in your name, or say for example you're collecting your mail at somebody else's house, so probably persons who are VAWA or seeking asylum may use somebody else's address. So in this case, you put the person who owns the apartment in the in care of line. If you're collecting your own mail at your own address, there's no need to fill that slot. You can just put NA here. Another thing to note, if any slot doesn't apply to you, do not leave it vacant. Put NA there, or if it's a numeric figure that is needed, put none there. So you're going to go ahead now and put in your street name, your apartment. So let's go with some names. So suppose my name is Jane Pam Brown. And I live at 123 Circle Drive. Maybe apartment 111. I live in, for say, Seattle, Washington, and whatever the zip code is, 9A112. May not be the right zip code, I'm just using as an example. When it comes to your registration alien number now, for persons who are an initial filer, this will be your first time filing, you will not have an alien number. So you want to go ahead and put none in there. Your USCIS online account, if you do not have any, put none. Which if you're a first time filer, you probably will not have any. You want to go ahead and put your date of birth, 8th of the 10th, 1988. Place you were born, let's say you were born outside of the United States, obviously. So say for example, you were born in Avondale, Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore your country or citizen or nationality would be Trinidad and Tobago. Right? So that is page number 1 completed. Let's go on to page number 2. Now, page number 2, it asks about your family status. And it says in this part, you will be providing information about the individuals in your household. Please take note of individuals in your household. So it's not just focusing on you alone, it's also focusing on your spouse, if he has children or if you have children. If you need any additional space to complete the item, you can use the additional space at the ending of this form, basically. And it says, please see the instruction for who is included in your household. That's what I'm saying. Make sure you read the instruction properly before completing the form. If not already provided with your form I-485, provide evidence of your relationship to each person, such as the birth certificate or marriage certificate. If you do not have this evidence of a relationship to one or more members of the household, please submit a signed statement from such household or his or her legal guardian if applicable. So say for example now, within Jane's household, it's just Jane, her husband. So we're just using Jane and her husband. So the first thing you always want to, because this form is for the beneficiary, most time you want to start off with you first. So family name again, it will be Brown, Jane, Pam. Date of birth, 10/8/1988. Relationship to you, self. Alien registration number, none. If you do have one, please input it. Does this individual live with you? You're going to say yes. Is this individual filing an application for an immigration benefit with you? Or has the individual already filed an application? You're going to click yes. Then you're going to enter your spouse's name. So Jane's husband is Ken Joe Brown. His date of birth is 9/9/1987. Relationship to you, husband. Or if it's your wife or your parents, whichever, your son, your daughter, you just state your relationship to the person that is filing for you. Alien registration number, if you have any, please enter. Then you're going to write none there. Does this individual live with you? You're going to click yes. If you, for some reason, if you're a spouse or a child, and for some reason your answer is no, you want to be careful about that, if especially is a spouse, because one of the major things to prove to USCIS is that your marriage is real. And why would it be a reason if you are together adjusting your status and you're not living with your spouse? There can be difficulty, for example, if your spouse is in the military, or if one of your spouse travels for work. If there is such a reason, you'll want to put an explanation for why your spouse is not living with you in the additional information section in part 9. Is this individual filing an application for immigration benefit with you? You want to click no if it's your spouse. Maybe it's a family filing together with your daughter or something, then you have yes. So you'll have your daughter's name listed or your son's name listed if they're filing along with you, and then you would put yes there. So for example, if any of the individuals, whether Jane or Ken, has a child, whether together or from a previous relationship, you want to enter their name in this slot and also their information. In many cases, you may have individuals that are adjusting their status here in the US, but they have a child from a previous relationship back in their home country. You still want to include that child name here on this section. But if you do not have any child, you want to make sure you put NA in all these sections. Do not leave any section blank. None for your USCIS number. Same thing here. And then you want to say total number of household members, including yourself. In this case, the number is 2. So that completes page 2 of this form. Okay, let's now go to page 3. As you and your household member asset and resources and financial status. Again, it says you and your household members, so it's not only taking into account you, but also your spouse, anybody else that lives within your household. When you say your household now, basically anybody that live in your household and contribute an income to your household then, or is a part of your federal income tax return. So if it's a dependent of yours, you want to include that person here. Going with number 1, list your and your household member listed in part 2 total income from the most recent federal income tax return, if any. So in this case, there are only 2 persons in this household, Jane and her husband, Ken. So, as I said before, let's start off with ourselves first. So, it will be Brown, Jane, Pam. Did you or your household member whose income is being included file a tax return? Yes, if you had filed a tax return for the last year together, you're going to click yes. If no, can be looked as a negative factor for you. So you have to have an explanation as to why you did not file your taxes. And here they give some explanation that you may give. In this case, sometimes persons adjusting their status are not working. So you're saying, how can you include an income if you're not working? Just the same way when you file your tax, you list it as a 0 income, or it just reflects your spouse's income. So in this case, it's going to ask you the federal year that you file. So we're going to put 2019, since that's the most recent tax that would be filed, and the total income. And here you're going to put your spouse total income. And this can be found on your W-2 on their W-2 form. So say for example, the person makes $50,000 per year. So you're going to put $50,000 right there. And as I was saying before, if as it relates to an explanation, if you stick no, if you and your household member did not file tax, select the reason for not filing. So some people may work under the threshold of filing taxes. So you want to put that explanation. If any of these apply to you, you can select one, and then you can further give an explanation as to expand on whichever you selected here. Because the thing with USCIS is sometimes you may not have a particular information, but you explain to why, because remember, these officers do not know you. So whatever information that you provide, that is what they're being used to judge you on. Next thing now, you want to put your spouse information here. And do you or your household member's income? That would be a yes again. Again, if your spouse did not file, you want to select one of these and put an explanation as to why. Federal tax year, and also total amount. And if you do not have an explanation or did not select any one of these, you want to put NA there, NA here. Let's go ahead. And if none here, you want to put it. If there's no explanation in this section, you want to put NA. Okay, so that concludes page 3. You just want to put NA here. In all the slots, NA, 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 NA. But please make it very neat. when you're doing it or typing it in. For some people may complain that they cannot insert NA on the form. So what you want to do is leave the slot blank if it cannot be inputted, and then when you print the form, just use a blocking pen and write it legibly inside the slot in bold capital letters. So for example, if you're using a pen, you want to go ahead and when you print it out, just write the NA right here, legible and neat. Not big like as I was doing. I'm just writing it this big for the purpose of the video so persons can see it. We're gonna move on now to number 2. Does any of the income from your household or family members' federal income tax come from an illegal activity? You want to make sure that's a no. So, if yes, to item 2, what amount of income comes from that? I don't think anybody really wants to have income that comes from illegal sources, because that's definitely would be a big negative factor for you in this case. So you want to put any there. Does any of your income from your household if it come from benefit as listed in the instruction? Public benefits. If you receive public benefit, you want to click yes. In this case, they do not, which would be a positive factor, and NA. But if you do even receive public benefits, say for example, is you're pregnant or it's just a case where you had to use it for a short term, you can state it, always be honest and give an explanation as to why you had to use it. So it's not something that you were depending on. It's just that maybe you fell into a situation, especially with COVID happening now, and you just want to explain, oh, because my spouse lost his job or got laid off during COVID, we had to use it for a short period of time. So you want to explain yourself. If you are a household member, we're going on number 6 now. If you or your household members receive additional income on a continuous basis, monthly or annual, and in this section, they're basically talking about things like child support or alimony or anything. Once you're receiving it on a monthly basis, so you want to put in that information the name of the recipient. You are also, so if your spouse is receiving alimony from previous relationship or child support from a previous relation for their child, and it's a monthly income that is always there, you want to put which of your family member. In this case, neither Jane nor Ken receives any of this, so we are gonna put an A, an A, an A. And here, if it was like, if they did receive, you want to put here whether it's alimony or child support. You want to list the type of additional income and the amount. But in Jane's case, it's going to be not applicable. And that concludes page number 4. Moving on to page number 5. You and your household member, and this is just a continuation if as it relates to question number 6. So in this case, as I said, none of them receive any additional income, whether alimony or anything like that. So all of this section right here, you're gonna put the NA to fill out all of these that I'm putting the dots on. So make sure all of these has NA in them. Okay, moving on to number 7. If any of the additional income listed above from illegal activity or source, such as illegal gambling. So here they're questioning whether if you're receiving alimony or if you're receiving child support, does that person receive income to an illegal source? You want to make sure your answer is no for that. So if that's a yes, then it would definitely be a negative factor for you. And if you select no, then the information will be not applicable there. Or if you do receive from illegal sources, then you enter the amount. As I said, this form is a weighing of positive versus negative factors for the beneficiary. Now, this is one area that a lot of people have a lot of concern about, part 3. In this section, it asks you to list. In this section, it asks you to list you and your household asset, resource, and financial status just the same. But in this case, it asks about you and your household assets and resources. Now, it gets tricky here because on one hand, if your spouse, that is the person that also signed your affidavit of support, meets the poverty guideline, then how much asset you have together is not that much of a big deal. But if you do have asset together, you want to list it because at the end of the day, it's a way of negative versus positive. So the more asset you have, the more positive factors that you will get, or the more positive points. But if it's a case where you do not have any resources, but your spouse meets the financial threshold, the poverty guideline threshold above it, then you just go ahead and fill in not applicable, right down the line, not applicable, right down the line, not applicable, right down the line, right down the line. But also remember, if you're going to list your assets, you need to get them appraised. So if you're listing a house or your car, or if you have bank statements together, a joint account, you can list that. There also your savings account if you have retirement. But if you're going to use your bank and your retirement is something that you have to be able to cash out in at least 12 months, that's only you can list it here as an asset. If you're going to use your bank account and or a retirement fund or a CD, it has to be able to be cashed out in the next 12 months or liquidated in the next 12 months. Also, if you're using your bank account, you have to make sure that you have at least 12 months, a year worth of bank statement to submit. So in my case, I did not have 1 year worth of bank statement, but I did have some. So I put not applicable, but I noted in the additional section that we do share a bank account, which I had submitted with my I-485, some statements, but I noted that we have not shared the bank account we didn't have our share bank account for a year. It has been less than a year, so I would not be able to submit initially 12-year worth of statements, but I would have that at my interview. Therefore, giving the person who is looking over my form an idea of some of the documents I will be able to produce when my interview time comes, which normally turns out to be around a year, so people have time to put together these documents. Moving on, liability and debt section. Now in this section it says please list your. So in this section we're not talking about your household members liability, because remember this form is focused mostly on you. So you want to list your debt. So if you have any debt here, mortgage. So if you have, for example, you bought a house with your spouse and it's listed here in the asset and you still have a mortgage on it, you're going to want to include it down here. So that's where it comes into where it can be a little tricky. So you're looking at, oh, you have a mortgage, although it's an asset in somewhat, you still owe on this house. So that's what I'm saying. In many cases, if your spouse reaches that threshold, you don't want to go too in depth. You just want to know that you don't have a lot of liability. If you have a car loan out or paying a car note, you want to include how much you have left on your car. If you have credit cards debt, educational related debt, tax debt, liens, personal loan, other. If you do not have any of these, you just want to put NA right down the line. Right? Another tricky area, the credit score and report. So for many people who have just come to the United States, will not have a credit report or will not have any credit history or may just be starting to build their credit. So in this section it asks, do you have a US credit report? You want to put yes if you have, or no, and it's no if you do not have. If you have yes, then you will need to provide a copy of your credit report. If you select no, it will say provide a credit agency report that demonstrates that you do not have a credit score. So many people may say this is a tricky one. Yes, it is. But Here in the States, every year you're allowed to get a free credit score, and you can go onto the credit bureau to get this score. When you put in your information, it will tell you that it does not recognize it. So what you want to do, or what I did, you want to write a letter to the bureau, which is located in Georgia. I'll drop the information, the location below. What I did was I wrote a letter explaining that I need this letter from them, basically explaining that I do not have a credit history. I did that, I mailed it off, and I received back a response from them. I can also put a sample of this letter. You know, I'm gonna do another video giving you a sample of this letter, or I may just put it at the end of this, depending on how long this video is. All right, moving on to page 7, continuation of the credit score. So it says, do you have a credit score? You want to click yes, it's applied to you. In this case, no. If yes, enter your credit score. So in this case, we do not have one. If you have a negative if you have a negative credit history, please basically tell them why you have. So give them an explanation as to why you have a negative credit history. In this case, we do not have one, so it's not applicable. Have you ever filed bankruptcy either in the States or in your foreign country? Click yes if you do. Click no. In this case, it's a no. And here you just want to enter the information. If you click yes, you want to enter your city, your state, the date, and the type of bankruptcy that you had. In our case, we did not have never filed a bankruptcy, so we're just gonna fill in not applicable for all this section. Basically how I did it up here.